You've just been assigned as the project manager to lead the construction of a recreational center in your town. You are so excited about this project. What would you do next to start the project? Hi, my name is Ogaga Johnson, and I help professionals to start and grow successful careers in project management. And on this channel, I share everything about project management, including life lessons from my project management career and business. So if you're looking to land a job in project management, grow your career, or you're just curious about project management, then click on the subscribe button and let us learn together. So you've been assigned this project and you're so excited. You knew because when you saw the project charter, you were named as a project manager assigned to the project. You're so excited. How do you get started? What do you do next? One thing that you should do next is to identify your stakeholders. The reason why this is very crucial and important is because your stakeholders are anyone that perceives to be affected by your project or that your project can affect. Let's take this project for an example, which is the construction of a recreational center. One stakeholder that can be identified are the local community members, people who actually reside and live in the town. They're very essential for this project. Another set of people will be the potential users, like people who actually use the recreational center. It could be for kids, legal guardians, parents, it could be anyone. So those potential users who we'll call customers are very essential to be identified at the very beginning of the project. Yes, that is one of the first things you do. And that set of stakeholders for this project could be, the government officials who will probably have to approve, verify the different aspects of the construction. And the fourth set of people, who could be stakeholders are the actual, construction, professionals or vendors who will be responsible for building different aspects of this recreational center. Now, if you have a project, how do you actually go ahead to identify who these stakeholders will be? One way to identify them is by having a meeting with the project sponsor. You can brainstorm and understand, who are the people that will likely be the stakeholders, who are people that are interested or will the project affect, who are these people, by doing that meeting with your sponsor, you can brainstorm on this. Another way to find out who your key stakeholders are on your project is through, having a meeting or a brainstorming session with someone who has done a similar project. Because this person will be able to bring expertise to say, oh, I did this project and these were the key stakeholders that were essential when I did a project very similar. So having that expert judgment on your project will be very key to identify your stakeholders. The third thing you can do to identify stakeholders on your project is by doing something we call document analysis. So if there are existing agreements already on the project, you could go read it out because those agreements could support maybe, for example, third-party vendors or people who have already been assigned to do one aspect of the project or the other, like project partners on this recreational project. So the first thing, remember, meeting with your sponsor. The second is having a meeting with someone, another project manager who has done a similar project. And the third thing that you can do to identify stakeholders on your project is document analysis, reviewing either existing agreements or even your project charter to be able to see who are the key stakeholders that have been identified. Now, when you've identified your key stakeholders on your project, the next thing you can do is to gather information from them, because you want to know what is your level of interest in this project. You want to know what is your level of influence on this project. What level of power do you have on this project, or can you exert on this project? You want to know those details. You want to know what their contact information is, so you'll be able to communicate with them regularly. You also want to know what is their preference for communication. Would this person prefer a face-to-face meeting? Would they prefer, just give me the information online in one portal and I will go there, review whenever I like? What is their communication preference? Do they like emails? Do they like a letter regularly? How would they like to be communicated? You want to understand that. You also want to understand if there's a particular aspect of the project that they are most interested in, right? Because they may not be interested in all aspects. They may just be interested in maybe the part where they can actually contribute to the different types of recreational activities creativity that are involved in the construction, or maybe they're actually interested in safety. That is what their key interest is, maybe because they're a union and they want to ensure that people in the town, when they go to that recreational center, they can have that confidence that it is a safe place to play for their children and for the entire family. So you need to understand, as a project manager, what part of the project are they actually interested in. You also do a bit of stakeholder analysis when you've gotten all the data that you get. A technique that you can use to gather those data is by doing things like questionnaires and surveys, especially if you have a large group of stakeholders, right? It might just be easier to send them a questionnaire or a survey, especially if they're a large group of stakeholders and they are dispersed. So that can be an effective way of gathering this data from your stakeholders. Now, once you have gathered the data, one of the things you need to do next is stakeholder analysis. You need to analyze all the different stakeholders and put them, according to maybe their level of interest, their level of influence, put them according to what stage of the project you need to ensure that, whether they're giving appropriate information, categorize where they should fall under, in terms of your engagement strategy. How would you engage them? What strategy would you put in place to engage them? And you also need to know what's their current classification on the project. Now, what do I mean by classification? Your stakeholders could be at different classification levels. There are 5 main levels of classification for stakeholders in terms of their engagement level. Your stakeholder could be unaware, that is unaware that the project even exists. That's the first classification level. The second is that your stakeholder could be resistive, like they do not want the project at all and they will oppose the project. That is resistant. The third is that they are neutral. Whether the project goes on or not, they really do not care. They're not for any side, they're just neutral. The fourth category is that they are supportive. They support the project and they say yes, they are good. And the fifth state is that they are leading. That is, they're not just supportive, but they are championing the project. Like they will speak up for the project. They will drag in people to, support the project. They are actively seeking the success of the project. So those are the 5 levels of classification for stakeholders. So you need to classify where each stakeholder is, what level of engagement they are at, because that will help you to know the best strategy on how to engage them. Because ideally, you want to ensure that all your key stakeholders are actually either supportive or leading. And really, you don't want any stakeholder to be in the resistant side. Even the neutral level is very tricky because who knows, they may just fall into resistance and you don't want that. So you always want to put engagement strategies to ensure that your stakeholders are either supportive or they are leading, to ensure that your project moves quickly and is successful. Because one of the key reasons why a project will fail is if you have stakeholders that are not supportive or leading. Finally, when you have all the data in terms of your classification for your stakeholders, what they need, why they're interested in the project, how the projects will affect them, their classification. The final thing you do when you're identifying stakeholders is to create a stakeholder register and put all this information in there so that it is a one place that you can go to see your stakeholders and get their information. There are 6 main components that you should have in your stakeholder register. You can have other components, but these are the 6 main components. The first component is your stakeholder identification. That is the stakeholder name, their contact information. Then the next one is your stakeholder assessment. Like, what is their level of influence or their level of interest? That assessment that we did, remember the stakeholder analysis, you put that assessment there for that stakeholder. The next is the stakeholder classification. What is their engagement level on the project? Are they neutral? Remember, we just learned that. Are they resistant? Are they supportive? Are they leading, or are they even unaware at that point? The fourth component that is essential is your engagement strategy. How would you engage with your stakeholders in order to ensure that you move them from wherever they are to supportive and to leading, or you ensure that they maintain that supportive and leading state that they are in? The next is your stakeholder communication preference. How would they like to be communicated? what frequency, what style would they prefer. And then the sixth element that is very essential in your stakeholder register is your stakeholder expectations. What do they expect from this project? Do they have a wish list? The reason why that is essential is so that you will know already what some of the key requirements on your project are. What should it contain? Now, obviously, you have more time to engage with them, to get their requirements on the project, especially if they are key stakeholders. But this at least will let you know what are their expectations, so that you know what stage of the project you need to heavily involve, each of the stakeholders on your project. So whenever you are assigned on a new project, the first thing that you do is to identify the stakeholders on the projects. So if you like this video or you learned something, give it a thumbs up, subscribe, and share with others so that they can learn as well with us. Thank you so much for watching, and I have so many other videos where I share and I teach on project management, so do check them out. And if you do, I will see you in the next video shortly. Bye now.